On a cold winter night in downtown Seattle, a female police sergeant lay motionless in a dark alley, shot and unable to call for help. The only one left was K9 Blitz, a loyal German shepherd, and what he did next made the entire police team break down in tears. The snow fell heavily, blanketing Capitol Hill, like someone had poured the sky onto the ground. The dim streetlights cast reflections of green and yellow light on the wet walls, glimmering over the cold, biting snow. The wind howled through the alley's nooks and crannies, where no one should venture at midnight. But Officer Avery Morgan was not like anyone else. She, the K9 patrol team leader in Seattle, experienced, composed, and cold, was on a crucial sweep. A high-level drug suspect had just emerged, and she was assigned the task of taking them down. There was no room for mistakes. Beside her was Blitz, the specially trained German shepherd, moving silently like a shadow. His dark coat almost blended into the night, with only his razor-sharp eyes and alert, upright ears scanning for movement. Neither of them said a word. They didn't need to. They were a team, understanding each other better than anyone else. Suddenly, Blitz froze. His ears twitched slightly. A faint metallic sound clinked against steel, so subtle that the human ear could barely catch it. Avery stopped, gesturing silently. She drew her gun, her eyes scanning the alley ahead. Dark, empty, not a soul in sight. Then, everything shattered in an instant. A bang tore through the silence. A sharp, searing pain exploded at Avery's side, spreading through her body like fire. She couldn't react in time, collapsing to the snow-covered ground. The bullet had pierced her armor, slamming into her stomach, a deadly, precise shot calculated in advance. Dark red blood spread across the white snow, staining the cold night, with a grim, desperate scene. Avery struggled to reach for her radio, but her hand trembled. Her vision blurred from pain and cold. No teammates, no backup, just Blitz, and Blitz, without barking, without panic, stood between Avery and the lurking darkness, growling. His back arched, his ears stood high, his body tense like a warrior. His eyes didn't just see the enemy, they saw the threat to the most important person in his life. The shooter, someone hiding in the dark, had yet to appear. But Blitz knew Avery wouldn't survive the night if he didn't act. The wind howled, the snow kept falling, but the silent battle had begun between a loyal dog and a night that hid betrayal, sorrow, and a far more terrifying plot than anyone could imagine. Blitz didn't hesitate for a second. As soon as Avery collapsed, he let out a growl, not a warning bark, but a desperate cry for survival. Then he turned and raced into the night like an arrow cutting through the snow. His claws tore at the icy street, his dark fur whipped by the snow. But he didn't stop. Blitz darted through the empty streets, past the yellowed streetlights, alone in the night, carrying the last hope of his dying partner. In the distance, the flashing light of a patrol car flickered faintly, and standing there as if fate had arranged it, Officer Miguel Alvarez, Avery's longtime friend and colleague, was reviewing the dispatch map on the radio. A bark tore through the air, startling Alvarez. He turned just in time to see a shadow rush toward him, like a storm blitz. His eyes blazing, his body soaked urgently, pulling at his arm as if to say, "Hurry, she's about to die." Alvarez needed no further explanation. His heart sank. He ran after Blitz, his footsteps pounding the ground as if chasing time itself. When they arrived, blood snow and Avery Morgan lying motionless, her face pale, her breath weak and almost invisible. Alvarez grabbed the radio officer down Capitol Hill East Alley. "Emergency medical services are needed immediately." The dispatcher's voice crackled through, choked with helplessness. "We're sorry. The entire emergency line is blocked due to the snowstorm." No one can reach you in time. Alvarez's heart seemed to drop into an abyss. And then a soft electronic hum from behind. Tires screeched on the ice. Alvarez turned. A white Tesla Model X, silent but powerful, slowly crawled down the empty street. Without thinking, he rushed into the street, waving his arms frantically. The window lowered. A young woman, her eyes wide with surprise but not panic. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice urgent. "Officer, shot, no ambulance, I need your car, please." She didn't hesitate. "Get in, I'll take you." Alvarez lifted Avery into his arms, her body cold, blood soaking through his sleeve. Blitz jumped behind them, never taking his eyes off his partner, not even for a second. The door of the Tesla closed. The navigation screen lit up. The snowstorm mode was activated. Harbor View Medical Center. The faster, the better. The young woman nodded, and the car shot off into the night like a bolt of white lightning. Snow battered the windshield, and the tires screeched with every life or death moment inside the car. 3 souls and one belief: Avery must live. The sound of an ambulance siren didn't fill the night. Instead, it was the electric engine of the Tesla cutting through the snow-covered streets, racing toward Harbor View Hospital, like it was racing against death itself. When the car slid to a halt in front of the emergency entrance, Alvarez flung the door open and lifted Avery in his arms. Her shirt soaked with blood. Her face pale, her eyes closed, as if just one more breath would keep them closed forever. "Emergency officer shot, severe blood loss," he shouted into the sterile white hall. Doctors and nurses rushed toward them like a tactical team. Blitz growled softly, his tense eyes following them as they rushed Avery inside. But there was no time for comforting or reassurance. Her condition was critical, but there was still hope. The operating room blazed with bright lights. The tools flashed. The ventilator hummed, and the heart monitor beeped with nurses shouting the timing of each second. A surgeon exhaled through his mask. "We have a 20-minute window if we don't stop the bleeding now. She won't make it outside." Blitz lay at attention right in front of the ICU door. No one could move him. He didn't bark, didn't whimper, didn't cause a scene. He just sat there in silence, guarding the door like a warrior, his eyes fixed on the place where his partner was fighting for her life. Doctors, nurses, patients, everyone who walked by paused at the sight. A dog soaked in snow, shivering from the cold, but unwavering in position. Not sleeping, not eating, not even blinking. Alvarez sat on the metal chair next to Blitz. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The way Blitz had rooted himself there, loyal to the end, spoke volumes. He gazed silently, his heart both heavy and grateful. "She's not alone, is she, kid?" Alvarez whispered. Blitz responded with a slow lift of his head, as if to confirm, never 4 hours, then 6 hours. The sky outside began to lighten, the snow still falling gently when the door to the ICU opened. Blitz stood still, his body taut, as if waiting for that small sign, that tiny movement, that would tell him that his partner, the woman he had fought alongside countless times, was finally waking up. Then just like that, a slight twitch of Avery's finger, the heart monitor beeped once faster than before. Alvarez, standing outside the ICU door, felt his breath catch in his chest. The room was still. Everything was still, but inside a spark of hope had ignited. Blitz, sensing the change, didn't wait. He let out a soft whine, his tail swishing with excitement, as if encouraging her to come back, to wake up and join him again. He stayed there, head gently resting on Avery's hand, not demanding anything, but simply being there, silently urging her to fight. Avery's eyes fluttered, then slowly opened. The first thing she saw was Blitz. his deep brown eyes staring at her with unwavering loyalty, as if saying, "I never left." It was the moment Avery knew she had made it. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a partner, a protector, and a friend who wouldn't give up on her. Blitz stayed by her side as the nurses and doctors entered, preparing to check her condition. Alvarez stood in the doorway, watching his heart swelling with gratitude and awe. Avery was still weak but alive, and it was all thanks to Blitz. Blitz had not only saved his partner that night, he had reminded everyone in the room that true loyalty never faltered, no matter how dark the night or how fierce the storm was. True friendship never gives up. As the days passed, Avery continued to recover. Blitz was always there by her bedside, watching over her while she slept. Always with her, for Avery, it was clear she owed her life to the one who would always be there. Her partner, her friend, her canine Blitz, and for Blitz it was simple. His duty wasn't over, not yet. It would never be over. He was her protector, her warrior, and that was all he needed to know. Avery's eyes slowly began to open. Her breathing became deeper, more rapid, as if something was urging her from deep within her subconscious. Her voice, weak, hoarse, but clear, "Blitz." The entire ICU room seemed to explode with relief. The doctor stepped back, nodding in emotion. "She's awake." Blitz wagged his tail, eyes brimming with tears, but not barking, just gently rubbing his head against her hand, a soft touch as if afraid to hurt his friend. Alvarez walked in, his voice choked. "He never left Avery. He brought you back, at all costs." Avery looked at Blitz, her lips moving again. "Good boy." And everyone understood. There were no miracles, only absolute loyal love, and an invisible thread bound two souls together. The faint morning sunlight streamed through the hospital window. The room was still cold, but something had warmed Avery. Morgan sat propped up on the pillow, one hand wrapped in bandages, her gaze deep in thought, looking out at the pale blue Seattle sky beside her. Blitz lay, his chin resting on the edge of the bed. Not sleeping, not taking his eyes off her. The days of recovery didn't begin easily. Not because of the injury, but because of the silent haunting that kept tearing at her. "I'm the commander. I should have known. I should have seen something wasn't right." Haunting guilt. Blaming herself. But Blitz would gently rest his head on her lap whenever Avery went quiet. When she cried, he remained silent, looking up at her with eyes that didn't judge. He didn't need to speak. He only needed to be there. The head doctor came in for a routine checkup. He nodded gently. "You'll recover, Officer Morgan, but it'll take time. And your little friend here, I think he's the best medicine you could have." Avery smiled softly, her eyes growing gentler as she looked at Blitz. "He's the entire medical team combined." That afternoon, the door to her room suddenly opened. A tall figure wearing a military uniform stepped inside, Captain Reynolds. His voice was deep but warm. "I've heard the story, Morgan. You fought and you survived." Avery tried to sit up seriously. "I'm sorry, Captain. I caught the team off guard." The captain raised his hand to signal her to stop. "You have nothing to apologize for. My team doesn't need perfect people. We need people who never give up, and you're one of those." He then looked down at Blitz, placing his hand on the dog's head. "And him. Blitz. He didn't just save you, he saved the spirit of the entire team." He took a navy blue velvet box from his jacket pocket. Opening it, inside was a K9 honor medal. "Blitz, he deserves this." Avery broke down in tears. Not because of the injury, but because of the feeling of being seen, forgiven, and given a second chance. She hugged Blitz, her voice trembling. "We're not done yet, old friend. We've still got a lot of work to do." The first steps are always the hardest. Avery Morgan knew that well when she placed her foot on the floor of the physical therapy room, gripping the support bar. Each step was pain, but also a reminder she was still here. And Blitz, as always, was by her side. He wasn't just a canine dog, he was her living cane, her silent source of encouragement, the only friend who understood every short breath she took without asking why weeks passed. The wound healed, the fear receded. One morning in the cold, early winter sunlight, Avery wore her uniform again for the first time. She stood in front of the mirror, looking at herself for a long time. She was no longer the Avery she once was. She was a new Avery, one who had fallen and stood up on her own. At the Seattle Police Headquarters, when the main door opened, the applause erupted. Colleagues lined up on both sides, silent but deeply emotional. One didn't need to say much to understand. They welcomed a warrior back. Avery walked in. With steady steps, Blitz walked beside her head, held high eyes shining brightly. She didn't look straight ahead. She looked at Blitz and smiled. "We did it, old friend." The police chief stepped out of his office, nodding. "Welcome back, Officer Morgan, and you too, Blitz. It's been too quiet around here." The whole team laughed. The atmosphere lightened, warming up amidst the cold winter. They didn't return as the same people. Avery, with the scars hidden deep within her mind. Blitz, with a gaze wiser than ever before. But because of that, they returned stronger than before with an unfinished mission. Justice still needed them, and they still needed each other.